So it is with great enthusiasm that we introduce the next segment of our symposium, the youth panel. And this is an inspiring opportunity for all of us to hear fresh perspectives and insights from the next generation of Spiritist thinkers, our emerging Spiritist thinkers and practitioners, as they explore the teachings that guide us all. So I have the honor now to pass the baton to Sofia de Oliveira, I hope I said that right, from the Sunrise Spiritist Society of Texas, who is our youth MC. And she's going to introduce the participants of this panel. Welcome her to the stage.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure to once again participate in this symposium, especially as we join with our friends from the youth panel to share these special moments. Today, the youth panel will be about Spiritist philosophy in real life. Let me start by introducing the moderator of the youth panel, Beatriz Lopez. Beatriz Lopez is currently the Family, Youth, and Children's Spiritist Education Director for the United States Spiritist Federation. She's a representative of the U.S. within the International Spiritist Council Youth Committee. Bea represented Spiritism globally at the United Nations at the age of 16, and since then has actively taken on various roles within the Spiritist community, from leading study groups to delivering lectures and organizing events like the annual Spiritist Youth Retreat. And to be a part of this panel, we asked to the stage Betinha Tavares, Leonardo Haddad, Gabriela Cabral, and Otávio Gonçalves. Betinha Tavares is a sophomore at Seneca Valley High School studying architecture. She has grown up in Spiritism and is a member of the youth group at Allan Kardec Spiritist Society of Maryland. She loves painting and views art as a way to connect with spirituality and bring peace to oneself and others. Leonardo Haddad is a recovery advocate at Nova Recovery Drug and Alcohol Rehab Center. Leo attended Spiritist youth education since a young age and has taken up the role of an educator. As a worker in the Spiritist movement, Leo focuses on bringing a new perspective on what it means to be a Christian within Spiritism. Leo holds a degree in psychology and philosophy from the University of California, Irvine. Gabriela Cabral is a freshman at Trumbull High School in Connecticut. Gabriela has been attending the Spiritist Center in Connecticut for her entire life. She wants to spread the word of Spiritism and have more people her age involved in such an amazing community. Otávio Gonçalves is a freshman at Newtown South High School in Newtown, Massachusetts. Otávio loves nature and animals. He plays the piano, likes to write stories, and draws. He has been a Spiritist since childhood. Nowadays, Otávio attends the youth group at the Allan Kardec Spiritist Society of Massachusetts. He believes Spiritism brings hope and balance to everyone. Bea, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sophia. And thank you to all of our panelists, for everyone for being here and allowing our youth to literally be at the front of the movement. So thank you for clearing the space really quick and letting them enter. So today I'm really excited to be here with this panel, and everyone always loves the youth panel because how could you not love a group of youth? But besides being a group of youth and being amazing to hear from, they actually do have wonderful insights to share, and they have very real experiences that can apply to all of us. So for this topic, for this panel, we're so excited to be talking about Spiritism in real life. And this is a topic that can apply to anyone. How can you apply Spiritism to your life? As teenagers and young adults that we have here, we also face daily challenges and decisions that we have to make just as adults do. These panelists have been fortunate to find or start finding ways of how Spiritism can start helping them get through some of those challenges that we all face on a daily basis. Our panelists are going to be talking about how the Spiritist principles have helped them navigate life's complexities with resilience, empathy, and purpose. And what's particularly inspiring is that although this is a panel of youth, I think there's a lot that you can learn from them, and there's a lot of experiences that will apply to things that all of the adults, as well as our youth here and our young adults, also experience. So I really think that even though they'll be talking about their youth perspective, this applies to everyone and can relate to each one of us. So I hope this discussion sparks some reflection within all of us on how Spiritism can be a practical tool to use in our daily lives for our own personal growth. So I'd like to thank all of our panelists for being here today and sharing your insights on Spiritism and the role it plays in your life. I would love to start off with Betchia. Spiritism teaches that our personal challenges are part of our spiritual evolution. How do you view your personal challenges in light of knowing this information?
So, is this on?
Yes.
Okay. So I feel like as a high schooler, especially, there's a lot of new things that we're always experiencing like every day. So as a student athlete, there's always has to be like a balance between school, personal life, and my sport. And so there's stress every single day trying to balance all of that out. One of the things that Spiritism really helps me with is knowing that I'm not alone in that I have my mentors, my spirit guides, that in my centro as well, the people in my centro that allow me to really navigate through all of those experiences. For example, in my personal life, I might not understand why friendships aren't in my life anymore, or certain people are treating me a certain way, but I need to understand that everything happens for a reason, and that we are all in our own individual, like, personal journey, and, you know, really understand that this also, like, extends to other people. So my friends, all of these things, like, I need to extend that compassion, that empathy, not only to myself, but to the others around me as well. So like that really helps kind of guide me through my life.
Yeah, I love that. I love that answer because exactly, right? We all deal with challenging people maybe in our lives or people that we don't agree with. Let me see an adult that's not gonna raise their hand for that one, right? But it's really important what you said, that it's more than, right? It helps us personally, but also helps us understand people and let go of grudges, because we understand that they're coming from a spiritual journey too, a spiritual evolution, that they have challenges we might not have, or maybe we had those, or maybe we haven't gotten to them yet. So I totally agree that that's a really good way that we can apply Spiritism in our daily lives. I also want to point out that it's so amazing to see this new generation of panelists, because you see that instead of paper, like even I brought, they all have their tech and for all their notes. So you know this is the new generation coming in. So in that same vein of how you're using this in your personal life, Otavio, I'd love to turn to you. Spiritism guides your decision-making in the challenges that you face. How does that apply to your life?
Well, is it working? No, it's not working.
You want to switch with?
Okay, there we go. Well, most of the lessons I learned from Spiritism came from the Gospel according to Spiritism. It's a book that taught me many lessons, like a lot. It taught me to love my neighbor as I love myself, to love even my enemies, to be peaceful and gentle, and to show forgiveness. Everybody has like a certain point of view of our stories, but in many situations, people don't try to stop and think. Like, let's pause and think of a solution that will be good for both of us. Sometimes in the middle of a two-sided argument, there is an element that sometimes is missing. That is a truth. So once Jesus Christ said, "I'm the way, the truth, and the life." The truth is that everyone in the world of trials and expiations is supposed to love each other, because that is a legacy that Jesus tried to leave on us.
Thank you so much. I told you guys were going to learn from this panel. Yeah, and I love that. I love how you tied to what Betchina was saying about, dealing with other people. And sometimes you're in this conflict and you get so worked up that you think you're right or the other person thinks they're right. And now you have to make these decisions, right, based on these situations. But when you take a step back and look at it from this spiritual view, it can really help calm you down, recenter, find that compassion for people, empathy for people, and make better decisions. Thank you so much. So off of something Otavio said, he talked about trials and expiations. Spiritism views these trials and expiations as opportunities for growth. Leo, I would love to ask you, how does this belief influence your ability to stay resilient during difficult times?
So I think my experience with trials and stuff, like I didn't really have a connection to Spiritism when it comes to trials and stuff for a long time until I was probably about like 18 or so, because that's when like things started to get kind of hard in my life, right? Like real trials. Because when you're a kid, like some people, may have had trials earlier on, but I feel like I was just kind of coasting in my life until I was like 17 or 18. So when trials really started in my life, that's when I started to reconnect with Spiritism, and Spiritism began to show me that trials are a normal part of life and that they're necessary for our growth, because left to ourselves, we won't change our bad habits. So often we have to go through difficult things to change our bad habits, and Spiritism kind of showed me the way with that, and how it's just, that's how life is, and we should celebrate that and not, be sad that we have to go through that, because every trial will make you stronger and bring you closer to happiness.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that's one thing that's really important for us and all the adults in the room to know, is that youth, they tend to go through the Spiritist Center with their families, and they're being dragged there, right? Sometimes they don't want to go, you're dragging them, I get it, right? There's conflicts. And then after they graduate high school, they go off, they're doing different things, and a lot of young adults leave the Spiritist Center because they're trying to figure out who they are. They're trying to understand who they are. Do I actually believe this, or were my parents bringing me? But like Leo said, it's so important because they do have that toolkit with them. So when there's trials and there's tribulations in their lives, they do remember those lessons, even if they're not at the Spiritist moment in that moment, because they're exploring other things, they're finding the world around them. They go back to that and they'll find the center as well, because they have that within them, that tool. So it's still really important to make sure all the youth have that tool, even if they aren't actively at the Spiritist Center at any point in their lives. But sticking on the topic of personal growth, Gabby, I'd love to ask you, how does Spiritism influence your ability to empathize with other people, especially during conflict, like Otavio was telling us?
Spiritist has showed me how everyone has something going on in their life. So whether you see it or not, everyone has something happening. And you have to have empathy towards them, because you have to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And even though sometimes that may be very hard, sometimes showing a little bit of empathy can help a person feel better and sometimes be kinder towards you. And sometimes their struggles are they're personal to them, and them being mean to you has nothing to do with you yourself. It has to do with what they're going through in their life. So you have to have empathy and compassion to understand that everyone has something going on in their life. And that's just how life works, and everyone has their own plan. And sometimes life gets difficult, and you have to be able to help people through tough times.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Again, that reoccurring theme of, right, even the youth go through challenges and, have difficult relationships or conflicts. And it's important though, right, like we're saying, to try and see where the other person's coming from. Because the same way we're trying to give ourselves the credit of, okay, we're coming from different experiences, right? Why is this happening to me? Take a second to think about, why is this happening to the other person, right? What are they going through in their lives? And a topic we've been talking about all throughout the event today is immortality, the lens of immortality. So, Otavio, circling back to you, how has knowing about this concept of immortality, how has that influenced your approach to handling life's challenges?
Well, I think we all here are aware that our spirits are immortal, and that when we make mistakes on earth, we will always have a chance to come back here, because God is merciful and kind to all his sons, which are us. And since we know that our spirit is immortal and that we should act with good intentions only, we should not take advantage of the ability of reincarnating, because reincarnating is a gift and a lesson. The earth is known as the world of trials and expiations, as I said before, so coming here is pretty challenging. But if we follow the instructions that God and Jesus left us, and especially from the gospel according to Spiritism, we will reach unimaginable places where the higher spirits are.
Thank you so much. That was a really profound answer that I think really summed up a lot of what we've been talking about today, of how that concept of immortality and reincarnation can help us in our lives. And I loved what you said, right? It's a gift. It's not to be taken, taken for granted. It's a chance for us to start over, but we don't have to wait either, right? We can start right now. We don't have to wait for the next incarnation to start doing better, trying to make a change. So in this concept, we've been talking about personal growth, how this applies to our lives. Leo, how does Spiritism guide your journey in continuous personal growth?
So, Otavio mentioned the gospel of Christ, and the gospel of Christ is, I think, the center of Spiritism, because as we know in Spiritism, Christ is the one who brought Spiritism to us. So when we're talking about continuous evolution, we're trying to get closer and closer to Christ, right? That's what I believe, and that's how Spiritism guides my life, so that I know Spiritism, the cool thing about it is that it summarizes very simply what our two biggest faults are, right? Which is selfishness and pride. So we know that we suffer because of our selfishness and our pride, and we know that the way away from that is through charity, through love, which is what Christ teaches. So that's it. Get away from pride and selfishness and move towards love, move towards being with Jesus, and that's it. That's the way to happiness.
Easy peasy, right?
Yeah, super easy.
And, right? It sounds super easy. I would love to know, Leo, is it always easy for you to do that? Do you ever find challenges in that?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, I'm at a place now where I consider myself lucky that I have difficulties, because it keeps me from settling into a position where just getting stagnant and not caring about my future and not caring about doing the right thing. So through difficulties, now I see that as okay, well, I got to keep going, right? I got to keep working on myself. So it is always difficult, and life is full of challenges, but you can start to see the beauty in that, and that's when I think you get to a truly happy place, is when you're well, this is going to be kind of difficult, but it's going to be worth it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that answer. And I think another thing that Spiritism can give all of us, and that helps, all of us as we're finding our place in this world, as we're getting through our challenges, is figuring out our sense of purpose, right? Because a lot of people can be lost, as we've heard panelists talk about today, of why am I going through these challenges? Why is this thing happening to me? Or why am I not that, we were talking about the writer or the being good at math or different positions, right? Why am I not that person? Why am I going through? And learning about Spiritism can help give you this sense of purpose. So, Gabby, I would love to turn to you. How does knowing you have a purpose on this earth right now, in this incarnation, how can that help you handle life ups and downs?
I think a main point is knowing that everything happens for a reason, and it's to help me evolve in my path of evolution and to grow as like a spirit, and trusting that God has a plan for me and that this is just part of my journey that I need to go through to become a higher spirit. And I think knowing your morals as a spiritist, knowing what you think is right or wrong, helps with how you handle life's up and downs, because you know what you think you should be doing that will help you to continue your path of evolution and what God would want you to do.
Absolutely, right? It gives us that sense of purpose of knowing, even if we don't know why, that we're going through this for a reason, or we have a reason to be here. We might not know why as we're growing up, as we're exploring, and even the adults you're growing up too, as we're growing up, all figuring out the world around us, what we're doing, right? You don't always know. But having Spiritism to know that there is a purpose, even if I don't know it right now, there's a purpose for the things that I'm doing, the reason that I'm here right now. And Betchino, what advice would you give to other young people who may feel disconnected with their spiritual path?
Yeah, so this question is very near to me because I relate to it a lot, related to it a lot. Because as you said before as well, a lot of, the young people, they feel like they're being forced to go to sin they're forced to learn, the doctrine and really be involved in it. But I think that my main advice would be realizing that it's not logical for you to want your personal journey to be like everybody else's, because your spiritual path is individual to you. Like someone in your family, maybe they're a medium, maybe they're super involved, and you may not want to go that path, and that's totally fine. Allow yourself to have that moment to really decide where you want to go and what you want to do with new things you learn as well. Open up to new possibilities, new hobbies, meditation maybe, set a routine for prayer and study more about the doctrine. I think that that's this period of disconnect may help a lot of young people truly figure out what their path may be in Spiritism, because that definitely helped me a lot. And I think that's the biggest advice that I have for them. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. I love how you talked about how, right, a disconnect can be good for us, because sometimes when we're lost and we're disconnected, it gives us that moment to reflect on, okay, what do I believe? What can help me in this situation? Finding your own path. And that's what a lot of the youth are here today, right? I'm sure some of you were dragged here, some of you wanted to come here, whatever it is, but at a certain point, you get to decide, right? We're not imposing this. You get to decide if this is something that you want to follow, that you want to continue in, or if not, that's okay too, right? You have those key concepts that's going to continue helping you in your life, continue to be a better person, but it's okay, right, that there's these moments that we might feel disconnected, but it's good that we have this ability to reconnect if we want to, if we choose to. And it's almost more powerful once we get to the point that we say, yes, I'm choosing this. Like, I'm no longer being forced here. I'm choosing this. I do believe in it, and I want to go this path. So I really loved that. Thank you. Betchia mentioned it a little bit, Leo. I would love to know, what Spiritist practice do you find most effective for maintaining inner peace?
So I guess I'll share, I guess a personal like story of like how my faith started to grow a lot. I used to have panic attacks. Like, I had a lot of anxiety and I had panic attacks and stuff like that. And this was part of those like trials where I was like, I need some help with this, which is how I began to reconnect with Spiritism. But I began to pray. I began to pray to the higher spirits. I wasn't sure. There wasn't like a specific higher spirit, but I was just asking the higher spirits for help. And that began to like soothe my anxiety. And when I had a panic attack and I prayed and I realized that through prayer, I can be healed of that, that was a big moment in my life, because I realized that it's true, right? Everything that we learn here is true. And all of these mental health problems that we have, reconnecting with our faith, to me is the most sure way to heal those problems, right? Because I believe that getting closer to God, getting closer to Christ, and walking the path of love, that's it. That's the key to, soothing the heart and the mind. So prayer is a big one. Practicing the gospel, practicing love your neighbor, making that attempt to love your neighbor, to love your enemies. That attempt will just immediately start to bring about inner peace. And it's just like a snowball effect where it just gets easier as you get more and more victories, right? Because sometimes you're just going through you're dealing with someone difficult, like we all do. And, in a moment of, if you are able to show restraint, if you're able to extend a helping hand to someone that it might be difficult to extend a helping hand to, those little victories, they add up, and eventually there's just a lot less obstacles within you to loving your neighbor, and you just begin to feel peace. So that's what I would recommend to anybody.
Yeah, totally agree. I think that's so important for you to talk about, right? Because earlier, and again, just relating to how these youth do have insight to these adult topics, because earlier today, right, we were talking about mental health, and we were talking a little bit, there was a question, right, about how religion can play a part in our mental health journey, and having that in many forms, right? And that doesn't have to be directly Spiritism, but having that connection, that way that we can connect to a higher being, something that brings us back down to earth, calms us down. And Spiritism, right, goes further and helps explain to us that help and that calm that we get when we have that moment of prayer, have that moment of peace. But it's so important to note, right, that you can do that anywhere, anytime to help you. Thank you so much for sharing. In a similar vein, I think when we meditate and when we pray, we're kind of having a moment of self-reflection. So, Betchia, I would love to ask you, how do you take that time to self-reflect when you're making important life decisions?
So I deal a lot, like, Leo also said, I have a lot of anxiety. So I've struggled a lot with prayer throughout, I guess, like after, like my early years, there's a nightly prayer, Our Father and all that. After some time, I started being very distant from it, which is also like referencing back to the disconnect. And now that I feel a lot closer to spirituality, it's definitely still hard for me to step back and kind of analyze the whole situation. But I think changing the way that I view prayer and spiritism, that helped me a lot to be able to now rely on my faith to make those decisions. To, like, you know, again, like Abby said, to be able to be like, okay, yeah, there's a plan for me. It's, you know, set. I just need to make the step forward and have trust in my guides and my mentors, in God, that everything's going to be okay. And, you know, that calms me down so I can really make that step forward to, like...
Yeah, totally. No, I totally agree. It's so good to have that moment of self-reflection, of reflecting on, right, what Spiritism teaches us, to have that moment of prayer, of meditation. And I think it's in that moment, right, that, like we were talking about, it's about personal growth. It's about what we're going through in our lives. And sometimes, even if we feel alone, we can help ourselves with the doctrine. We can help ourselves. We can get those Spiritist teachings to help us, to guide us, connect with the higher spirits. And even if we may feel totally alone, we're not, right? Because we have that to console us and to help us in our journey. But I love how you were all talking about how you really do apply these to your daily personal lives. And in, you know, growing up in Spiritism in the US, you're not in classrooms with people who are all Spiritists. You're not always with Spiritists. You don't go to work or sports or school with people who even know what Spiritism is. So having these tools that you can use in your lives, that you don't even have to, you know, you don't have to mention it to Spirit. You don't have to say to someone about Spiritism to just do a quick prayer before something, before a test, before a sports game, like we've been talking about, right? It's something that you can apply in any aspect of your life, even if those around you, right, might not be Spiritist or might not have that spiritual connection. Otavio, can you share a time where faith and hope helped you persevere through a difficult time?
Well, at first, I was reluctant to talk about this topic because it always made me feel fragile and vulnerable. But I feel safe to share with all of you. So, thank you guys. Well, it was like 2 years ago when my grandpa, who is a very special person to me, was going through a kidney transplant surgery, and I was very afraid that he wasn't going to make it. So I thought to myself, what could I do to help him go through this time, and also me to go through this time. So I prayed very hard every day, and I thought about it, that my grandpa wasn't doing a great job taking care of his body, which consequently gave his spiritual body a hard time. Because when you don't take care of your actual body, like on earth, your spiritual body also goes through a hard time. So I asked God, our Heavenly Father, if He could forgive my grandpa, who has a huge heart, that he did it unconsciously. He didn't know that he was giving his spiritual body a hard time. So I asked God if he could forgive my grandpa. Then I waited for the surgery, and eventually, thankfully, it all went well. And I kept thinking. I'll be like, kind of, forgive me for my language, but I thank my guy up there a lot, you know. I was very informal with God, which is not usual, but I think that's my relationship with him, you know. I just feel connected with God when I think about it. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. And I love what you said, right? Our connection with God doesn't have to be formal. It has to be a way that we feel connected. So I love that. Gabby, going back to a question that we asked Betchina, but I would also like to ask you, what advice would you give to young people who feel disconnected with that spiritual path?
So earlier this year, I did not feel very connected at all, and I felt it in myself. I was not happy with anything I was doing in my life. I did not have fulfillment in school, sports, friendships, and something that I think really changed that was my mindset on things. I used to I still do because I'm 14, so, but not always wanting to go to Sam's, or not wanting to get up early Sunday morning, not wanting to, drive 15 minutes. But one of my friends is laughing at me because she has to drive an hour. But changing my mindset to know that, yeah, it sucks to have to get up early, but the spirits that are there are good spirits, and I know that if I go there and I know that if I go, I will get the help I need. And especially during that time in my life, I think when I went, I was my happiest there because I would sit, we have this basement in my church, I would sit there and I would pray. And I remember there was this one prayer that I did, and it was to myself. And I felt so connected that I felt like I wasn't even in the room anymore. I felt so connected to God. And I feel like my mindset helped attract the good energy. And from that point on, I started to try to cut out the toxic parts of my life, like friends that weren't helping me with my spiritual path, or activities that I was doing. I used to do the sport, and it definitely hurt my mental health, and I think it deeply affected the way that I acted. And once I started to cut those toxic parts of my life out, I started to feel so much happier and lighter, and I started to just feel myself again. And just knowing that God and Jesus and your guardian angel always want to help you, you just have to be able to accept their help and know that they want for you to be the best version of yourself.
Yeah, great answer. Thank you all so much for all these wonderful insights. And before we head out, I want to ask you all one final question. What is one key takeaway or piece of advice that you would offer to someone who's just been beginning to explore their spiritual path or spiritism in general? I'll start with you, Otavio. We'll go in order here. Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Actually, I have two takeaway keys. And one is that you actually believe that God exists and you can connect yourselves with Him. And the other one is that you read The Gospel According to Spiritism. It's a great book, and it will teach you to follow the core values of Spiritism and replicate them in your lives.
Thank you. Betchina, how about you?
Yeah, okay. One big thing, I also think I have more than one, but less than three. One big thing I would definitely say study, like, and not like get out the books, get 5 notebooks, like, no, like you could also like start visiting, like trying to see if there's a centro around you. Because, you know, like start visiting, if you have one specific subject in Spiritism that you really want to like research about, like see if there's like one specific book that, you know, Kardec has published that really talks or goes in depth about that. I know that for me it was, you know, spirits, because most of my disconnect as well from earlier questions was because I was dealing a lot with like my own spiritual stuff. So I was like, if you want to know more, you know, like go into it, like study, because you're gonna find that there's a lot more interesting things, and it's not gonna be like, you know, like school stuff. It's not like, oh yeah, go research like what happened in 1896. Like there's gonna be like notes and like dates, but don't be so hard on yourself when you start, because I feel like it's a lot different if you're not like growing up in it. So like start with the people, you know, like build community, and I feel like that's really gonna like, it's gonna pull you in, because we're really cool around here, okay, y'all?
I love it. Gabby, what about you?
I think definitely, like, go to Santru, but have a good mindset. Like, don't go to Santru because you're forced to, even if you are forced to. Go because you know that you'll get help there. And if you're going through a hard time, even if you don't want to talk to someone, like, pray, because technically you are talking to someone, just not in person. And definitely prayer will get you the help you need, because then at least you're communicating with a higher spirit that you need help and you're going through a difficult time and you're trying to make a change in your life and you just need a little extra push.
Yeah, thank you. And I think even the adults in the room, right? Sometimes you have a day that you didn't want to go to the Santru, right? I'm sure there's a day that you don't want to go, but you get yourself there anyway, right? And then that's what matters, to have that positive attitude once you're there, right? Trying to embrace something, definitely. And Leo, to end us off, what key takeaway or advice would you give?
I always go back to the law of love, because in Spiritism, it's the greatest law. I forgot what question is in the Spirit's book, but it says that of all the laws that we study, the law of charity is the greatest one, because it's the one that causes our progress the fastest. And the law of love is something that is in the book and it's outside the book, because you can take that everywhere you go. You know, you can practice that with anybody, and really you don't even have to be Spiritist to practice that. And I think deep down we all know that love is the way, no matter who you are. So yeah, the law of love.
Thank you so much. I would like to let our young adult group go back to your class first, so you don't have to, just so they can go first as their group. Thank you all for joining us so much. Thank you all so much. Thank you all for allowing the space for our youth to be here, to be at the front, for allowing these youth to be up at the front talking to you all of all their amazing insights. So thank you.